Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of Analysing Anfield. This is a one-off, really, isn't it, Dave? A one-off chat for about 15, 20 minutes because of the important breaking news regarding Liverpool, and that is to do with, sadly, Virgil van Dijk and his anterior cruciate ligament injury that he picked up against Everton in the Merseyside derby. So, obviously, tomorrow, we're recording today on the Monday, recording the usual podcast on the Tuesday regarding the derby, regarding Ajax, and looking ahead to Sheffield United next week. But today, we're just going to get the big Van Dijk talk out the way, really. So, Dave, I'll let you start, mate. I mean, are you surprised? What do you think this is going to do to the title race, all that sort of stuff? Like, I'm not really sure where to start with this one. This
Yeah,
devastating news.
yeah, no, it is. It's terrible, terrible news. It was just we already spoke about it, me and you. It was just a ridiculous, stupid, rash challenge that's basically resulted in a really bad injury of one of like the division's best players, which is a shame in itself. But then obviously we look at it from a Liverpool point of view. In my opinion, Josh, I don't know if you agree. Van Dijk is probably the worst player Liverpool could lose. I would put maybe Alisson in that bracket. I know they've lost Alisson, but thankfully it's not long term. You're thinking maybe Salah or anyone like that, but it does feel like maybe Salah's up there as well. But it does feel like Liverpool have got kind of players who can come in other areas of the pitch, whereas just in terms of the kind of character and this colossus profile of Van Dijk, it does feel like it's just a huge blow, and it does kind of feel like it can impact things like the title race. That might seem a little bit extreme, but I do think he's that big for this Liverpool side.
No, I do as well. I think this. Put it this way, I think this is that big of a deal that I think it probably removes. It's a big statement, this, but I feel like it probably removes Liverpool as a 90-point team. I think maybe we drop a little bit below that without Van Dijk for the season. Bear in mind, this is for the season. I mean, there's been 5 games played, so we've got 33 games to play without him. He's probably not going to feature at all, is he?
He might come back end of the year, but it just takes a while to get back up to speed, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah, but I would agree with the 3 players you just mentioned there, really. I think in terms of having capable backups, I would look at Van Dijk, Alisson and Salah as the 3 Liverpool players that you need fit for the majority of the time. At least with Alisson, the performance on the field between the 10 outfielders shouldn't suffer too much, but results probably will without Alisson. With Van Dijk, you're probably getting both. But just in terms of like what he offers to Liverpool and things that are likely to change, I've just wrote about this. We're recording mid-afternoon at the minute on a Monday. My piece is going to go at around 6 p.m. ish, I think, on Liverpool.com. I'm going to address all that sort of stuff, but just in terms of what Liverpool lose, it is quite a lot. I mean, if you think about, naturally you would think about the defensive aspects, the defensive strengths he's got and what he adds to Liverpool on the defensive side, but that also has a real impact on how Liverpool attack as well. Like, Liverpool attack with like 7 players in the final third and things like that, and Liverpool are able to do that and not really suffer at all, because when the opposing players get these counter attacks, these breaking opportunities, Van Dijk just deals with them. And if you look at the opposite end of the Northwest and look at Manchester, for example, City have suffered from that exact problem. They've played roughly like Liverpool have in attack, but then when these moments happen where opposing players are driving up the field, just the defenders that City have had for the past year, with Laporte injured, they haven't really been able to cope with those moments, and I feel like Liverpool are gonna suffer a little bit as a result of that.
Yeah, I agree. We spoke a lot about the high line, and we've talked about why it's deployed. It's basically there so that Liverpool can pen up opponents into their own half. They can dominate. They can then have so many players contributing to the attack, like you've just said. But key to that crucial to that is Van Dijk. I know he has a partner next to him, but he is the key component in that. He wins most duels against attackers he comes up against. He's got recovery pace, so he can run in behind if he needs to. You're talking about a player who, and there's other aspects to the defender's game, but we just focus solely on duels. You're talking about a player who's it'll vary where you look at this data, but wherever you look, you're more than likely going to see a player who's 70+% in terms of ground duels won and aerial duels won. And I assume you probably agree with this, Josh. I think that's probably the best you can get for any player really who plays week in, week out as a defender. I think you're not going to find better numbers than them. And it does really capture just how dominant he is.
Yeah, I think that's probably the word. Like, the other week when you was off, Dave, got asked a question about centre backs and what Liverpool look for in the centre back and stuff, and the question was to do with aerial ability. But I think what I said at the time was that the most important aspect for Liverpool centre back is that he ticks the dominant box. He just has to be a dominant player in all phases of the game, and when it comes to facing 80% plus of strikers or whatever, he has to just be a dominant player in control of situations. And Van Dijk is that because of his skill set, because he's got virtually no weaknesses. He dominates every situation. He's in complete control all the time. And, the high-risk defending that Liverpool employ, defending on the halfway line, you've got all your teammates 20 yards ahead of you. You're coping in isolation against the likes of Upamecano and Pepe and Sterling and, I don't know, all the players who are tricky. And Van Dijk just manages them. It's just that's his biggest thing really. He provides a platform really for Liverpool to attack. He's kind of like the ultimate safety net really. That safety net's now getting removed, and the player who comes in will be Fabinho or Matip or Gomez, all good players, but they all have weaknesses. Fabinho, for example, isn't quick. Matip isn't quick. They're both good in the air. Joe Gomez is quick, maybe a little less dominant in the air. Maybe he's not in control of situations as well as Van Dijk is. So it's just going to be a slightly different game, a little bit at least, especially when it comes to Liverpool suffering from moments when opposing teams get these breaks, when Liverpool aren't able to sustain attacks and an opposing team manage to get out. That's when it's going to be different than normal, I think. And we haven't even mentioned, set pieces.
Yeah. I mean, set pieces are huge. We're going to come on to them, I'm sure. But just, I just thought it was really interesting as you were talking about players there who will come in, and you kind of highlighted a few of the grey clouds that'll be over them. And that's one thing that Van Dijk doesn't have. He literally, you've said it already, doesn't have a weakness. So that breeds such a confidence in his own ability, but also it breeds a confidence in the players around him with him there. There's no question marks whatsoever. Now you're going to have players coming in who know they have some weaknesses. There's going to be some self-doubt there. I don't think Van Dijk has any self-doubt because he's been, the best centre-back for, 2 or 3 years now. And you're just losing that. And you do kind of wonder what the psychological impact of that will be on the players around, the players you've now got to kind of step up, but also know that there's elements of their game where they'll be thinking, I'm not the best at that. And just these little, which might only sound minute details, but they're not really in a game like football, and especially the way Liverpool, as you say, they play high risk, they have a set way, and it needs to be as a unit spot on. I do think there's going to be an impact from that side of things as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think of the number of strengths that Van Dijk adds to Liverpool as a team, while nullifying so many weaknesses, the counter-attacking threat is really, really nullified by his presence. The aerial threat is nullified. The conceding from corners threat is nullified. I mean, I've just wrote in my piece, it's probably no coincidence really that 8 minutes after Van Dijk leaves the field, Everton score from a corner, direct from a corner as well. And Calvert-Lewin's header late in the match, it's from the position, the left-sided centre-back position sort of thing, where Van Dijk maybe would have been. The left-sided centre-back is another issue attached to this because all of our centre-backs are right-sided. Van Dijk was the only natural left we had. Now he's injured. In terms of the diagonal passing that he offers as well, that's a way out of, if Liverpool are getting pressed, that's a way out, basically. Arteta mentioned that a few weeks back. Arsenal were pressing Liverpool high, and I think Arteta said that as perfect as a press can be, the ball goes to Van Dijk's feet and he hits a 60-yard pass to Salah, and then Liverpool are out. If you think of Bayern Munich in the Champions League a few seasons ago, the ball's over the top that Van Dijk plays. So it's not just... I think what I'm getting at is it's not just the defence that Liverpool are losing out in here. It's with and without the ball.
Yeah, because he is so good with the ball. Like I had a quick look at earlier, and you do find like defenders tend to dominate metrics, which are involved with long balls attempted because they're normally the furthest on the pitch and can attempt more. He's second behind Trent Alexander-Arnold this season, although it's a small sample size, but I imagine it'd be pretty similar for last season if I had a look. But the thing is, I feel like when he does it, it's calculated passing. And I feel like if the pass isn't on, it never feels like a toothball, put it that way. And when that pass isn't on, I think he is really intelligent with his passing. I feel like he's risk averse. I know we've had a couple errors recently, but that has seemed to come in, one was in Arsenal when the title was already won, bit of a sloppy game. Can't remember when the other one was it Leeds or something like that?
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah. But, except for that, you can't think of any. And I do just think when he's in possession, he's just so smart with it. He knows when to go simple, when to go easy, when to maintain. But then when that opportunity does present itself to switch the ball or go long, he'll not only attempt it, but 9 times out of 10, he executes it perfectly as well. No, he is a really good passer with the ball.
Yeah. I think what you've just mentioned there, the whole decision-making aspect of it, it just epitomises how in control he is, really. He's just in control of everything that he does. And I think he kind of reaffirms Liverpool's ability to basically own the pitch. And I think without Van Dijk on the field, I just feel like Liverpool are now slightly less equipped to properly own the pitch. I think that the way that the threat he provides in behind with them balls over the top and the threat he nullifies in behind Liverpool's defence, it just reaffirms that dominance of the pitch, and that's not going to be there now. I'm not exactly sure how Liverpool are going to get around this, whether Fabinho is going to start hitting those passes. I know Henderson hits a few, but he's been playing as more of a box-to-box midfielder lately.
The problem is as well, you lose a little bit of the pace of the move as well if it does have to be a Henderson or someone, because unless they're playing in defence, there's one extra pass in there, one extra sequence, isn't it? And it's just, whereas it feels like Van Dijk is, sweep gone over the top, and suddenly a defence is on the back foot trying to reshift the shape or drop in after the press is being bypassed. Where if there's another pass in there, I just think it's easier for these elite level players to kind of see things unfolding a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, can you see maybe any tactical adjustments emerging because of this? Like whether Liverpool will maybe be a bit more inclined to retreat with the high line because of the lack of pace now in the central defensive pairing without Van Dijk. If you bring in like a Fabinho or a Matip, or can you see Liverpool? I don't know, just all kinds of different changes maybe that you could impose as a result of them not playing.
Yeah, it's interesting because the thing you've got to remember is obviously you can't just drop a line and carry on playing the way you do everywhere else on the pitch. The reason they played high lines to be compact, so when they press, there's no spaces in between, is there? If you drop the line but carry on pressing it the way you do at the front, there's going to be gaps through the middle.
I think an example that comes to mind is before we signed Van Dijk, I recall Liverpool being much more intense and much higher in the pressing, and that was basically to just keep the ball away from the defence, because it kind of couldn't be trusted. I don't think Liverpool are in that position anymore where, like, the defence can't be trusted. This is only one player at the end of the day. But a way to kind of keep the ball away from that area would be to be more intense with your press, to go higher, maybe, lower your PPDA sort of thing. But it just remains to be seen whether Klopp will kind of look at the situation and think, right, this player's so integral to what we do that we need to change, or whether he'll just think, we keep going as we are. It's one player. It's a difficult one to assess this. I mean, I'd usually look at the former and think, Klopp's just not going to change it, and it's a team game. But at the same time, this is a player who started, I believe, the last 74 consecutive league games for Liverpool.
And what would be interesting is if we did see a kind of wholesale change and we did see the line, dropping a lot deeper. Maybe even Liverpool's teams dropping much deeper, because the reason they had to kind of adjust to this control and dominating was teams just wouldn't, engage with Liverpool. They'd sit back and there'd be no space, and they've had to kind of adjust to overcome that. It would be interesting to see if Liverpool as a unit dropped off more, creating, and that meant opponents would have to come out a little bit more and therefore leave a bit more space in behind for the front three to kind of punish. A bit like being able to just use Salah and Mane, being able to use the pace a little bit more, getting in behind, things that they haven't really been able to do unless on the counter attack for a couple of years now. I don't think opponents would be that naive, and I'm not sure, as we just touched on, Klopp would suddenly just completely change the dynamics of the team, because that takes time to sort out. But it is interesting to see if we did see something like that happen, could it benefit Liverpool's attack maybe?
Yeah, no, it feels a little bit unprecedented, to be honest. I mean, I suppose it fits with the current times, the current climate of the world in a way, but it feels a bit like uncharted waters. I wouldn't say that any of Klopp's main principles are going to change, anything like that. I think I was more just referring to subtle little tactical adjustments, like maybe being a bit more inclined to retreat if an opposing player is coming towards Liverpool, maybe like an engaging or something like that. I don't know. But in terms of...
I think just quickly on that, mate, I think there'd definitely be less of an emphasis to try and be like catching players offside and things. I think
that's an example, yeah.
Yeah, less caution to the wind approach and more just, maybe going to be a little bit safer.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that has been mentioned is potential signings. As a consequence of this injury, he's going to be out for quite a while. Liverpool only technically have, I think it's 2 senior normal centre backs now. If you're excluding Fabinho and Nat Phillips and players like that. Obviously, the January window is open in 3 months' time. Under 3 months' time now, actually. But can you see Liverpool doing any business? Is there any players maybe that come to mind? You know what I mean? And that sort of thing.
Obviously, I think there's going to be players touted like Upamecano's, because he's probably the closest thing out there in terms of a Van Dijk, I know we got the likes of got players going through like Reece Williams, who looks a similar profile, but he's not quite ready. Upamecano is kind of still not as good, but he's in the same mold as Van Dijk, I guess. But
insistently, his release clause is actually active next year.
In the summer,
it probably is the summer, yeah. But I don't know if Liverpool come in January. It seems to be a good relationship between the clubs, so I don't know.
What is the release clause now?
I think it's quite reasonable, to be honest. I think, considering how long he's been there, I think he's now developed to the point where Red Bull have basically got to let him leave, sort of thing. So I think it's around like 40 to 60, which for me, he's a top player. He's worth that.
Yeah, that'd pay that. But I just the impression I've got from Liverpool so far, maybe it changes under these circumstances, is they just wouldn't part with that cash, especially with all being well. Van Dijk will probably be back in the summer, ready for pre-season after the Euros and good to go again. Just seems like a big outlay.
Yeah, my concern would be, in a situation like that, what happens then if once Van Dijk comes back? That's a squad void. That's a squad filler who's now not going to get any minutes. You're paying him every week. All that sort of stuff. So maybe we could potentially look at a loan, a 6-month loan or something like that. That's probably an avenue that could get explored. Stephen Colker was the infamous one a few years ago for that.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Did he play? He played a couple
Yeah, I
times.
think he played some minutes up front as well.
Did he? Yeah, chasing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll have to round up. This was only supposed to be a short chat. Hopefully we've covered some of the key aspects there about Van Dijk. It'll be interesting to see how Liverpool cope moving forward without him. And we will be back tomorrow, actually talking about the week ahead and the Merseyside derby. And make sure you tune in. So hopefully Liverpool stay as they are. Hopefully we retain the title without Van Dijk. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and thanks anyway, Dave.
Cheers.